Welcome to Recovery His Way. I'm your host, Tom Reynolds, and today we have on the campus of His Way, Huntsville, Chris Stone. Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
Enjoyed last night. It was a great celebration. We celebrated your graduation of 6 months, and I know it's not the first time you've gone through that, but I mean, it's been an interesting journey. I really count you as a special friend and a special part of this program, and I'm looking forward to, I know we have a lot in front of us, probably more in front of us than we have behind us, but I appreciate all that you've been to this community. You've been around pretty much for about the last year and a half.
Right.
And I wanted to kind of begin just with sharing about your journey. What's happened in your recovery journey? Where has that brought you to today?
Well, Tom, I've got a little bit maybe not your quintessential like addict story. I didn't grow up really disadvantaged or rough. Went to college, went to grad school, got married, career kind of took off after grad school, and things were good. Like I mentioned last night, I had a comfortable life, and but I always struggled with kind of that something missing. Kind of a hole inside me that it didn't matter how much money I made or how, what job I had, nothing ever really filled it. I had a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety most of my life, never content with anything. And I filled that hole with drugs and alcohol. That's how I medicated. Now I took, since I've been a teenager, I was on some form of antidepressants or anti-anxiety medicine. But I would also mix that with other things. And I just really struggled with depression and anxiety and just not being content. And it eventually, I went through some adversity in my life, some loss of friends and relatives, and then a divorce. And it just really, I found myself in a hole I couldn't climb out of. And things just really spiraled quickly out of control.
How long ago was that? I mean, when did all that kind of
That kind of, I always say the wheels fell off, probably started in 2006, 7, 8, and then by 2010, things were really bad. I actually went to a treatment for my first time in 2011. Went there, things didn't, I can get sober in rehab. I'm good at rehab, but it was always the once I got out of rehab thing. Went to treatment then in 2011, sober for a little bit, went again, and actually had about a little over 2 years sober, and then things just really got bad again. And that kind of led me to the depression and anxiety were really out of control. I had a couple of suicide attempts. I landed in behavioral health unit, and that kind of started the journey to His Way. I didn't come to His Way directly out of the behavioral health unit. I went to another treatment facility first, was sober again for about a year, and then relapsed and worked with a gentleman at a car dealership that came through the program. And he actually two guys there, and they led me into His Way. I graduated the first time. Actually, almost a year to the day of last.
Exactly,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it was a year to the day. And so I came to the program, graduated successfully, and then relapsed pretty quick, And then I came back in October. And by that time, and I mentioned this last night also, I really never, ever really considered a spiritual component to my recovery. I might pay lip service to it, but I really was a non-believer in God for a lot of years. And if I did believe in God at all, if I ever even considered God, it wasn't in a good way. It was that I saw, for years I was angry. If there was a God, I was angry at Him. I saw, I thought it was someone just torturing me. Because there was a time in my life where, and I kind of look at it now and I see that maybe it was God trying to guide me towards Him. And I saw it more as I just couldn't seem to do anything right. Like everything I tried, everything that was on my own devices, I couldn't make it successful.
Right.
It just fell apart. I felt like some days I couldn't put one foot in front of the other. And I remember having these conversations with God in my head, and even out loud sometimes, I would always say, "You're not going to break me. I'm not going to do what you want me to do." Well, eventually, though.
Who won that one?
Well, right. Well, I think we both won, really,
Right,
ultimately. But so I came here in October and really thought I was working the program good, and I was really trying. I had decided to surrender, and things were going well. And then I ran into some adversity, as everyone knows, pretty much, and was dismissed from the program. And that really was the turning point for me. I have to say, you wouldn't think that being dismissed from the program that you think you're working correctly and really working it hard. But that really, for the one time in my life, I didn't run off the rails. I didn't make the bad decision. I didn't use it as an excuse to go out and relapse. And, I'll always owe y'all and Daryl Floyd in particular a debt that I can't really repay of what it meant for everybody really rallying around me during that time. And that really brought me closer to God, closer to everyone in the program. And ultimately, I think it led to the position in Atlanta. You would never think being dismissed from a program would lead to good things. But, I ultimately returned in January. And but by that time, I was really focused on what I thought my spirituality was. I really saw how just not doing the wrong thing and just doing the next right thing really brought me closer to God, closer to you, closer to Daryl, closer to everybody in the program. Because it really blew me. That's the first time that it really hit me like that these people aren't out to get something out of me. And I've always had that problem of not being able to trust people. I always thought someone had an angle. And really after that kind of outpouring from everyone, it finally hit me like these people aren't trying to get anything out of me. Right. They're really helping me because that's what they feel like they should do. And I could finally let my guard down and finally just really embrace, my walk with God and embrace the program. And that made a big difference to me. It made all the difference, really. My anxiety faded away. I mean, I know you've probably noticed I'm still anxious. I'm never going to not be kind of anxious, but I'm not anxiety ridden like I was before.
Right.
I can sit still, relatively so, in a room, full of people. And that I really, if a dismissal could ever be, if there's ever a silver lining to one. And it's funny the way it worked because the dismissal pushed when I came back in the program, it pushed my graduation date and completion date pretty much in line with the program starting in Atlanta. Right. Which gave me the opportunity basically to stay here until we were ready to start the program and then be employed in Atlanta. Right. And if I had kept my original graduation date from October, when I was in the program in October, I don't know that I would have stuck around for 3 additional months. Right. I mean, I would like to think I would have, but I don't know. Sure. And this kind of removed any, I guess, decision making I had on the because I was always going to finish the program. Right. And it coincided exactly with this opportunity in Atlanta. Right. And it's just funny how God works. It
is funny, and you've mentioned a lot of things I'm kind of interested in. So I want to ask you some questions and following up with what you've said, because you've outlined a number of things I thought were interesting. One thing I would like you to kind of maybe express a little more, talk a little more about is, in the relapses that you had over the last 15 years or so, you've been out of program, come out, do good for a year or two. What, as you look at that process and look at even the more recent relapses you've had, what's the roadblock that you kind of hit that kind of drives that? What is there, it's like I'm doing well and then we hit something. What is that? What have you noticed that thing to be?
I'll tell you with me, and I don't know that I'm unique in this, but with me, my relapses typically happen when things are going good for the most part. I will get sober, kind of start to build everything back up, and then that thought always has, in the past, has crept back into my mind. Well, because I kind of get complacent with it. I'm like, well, I've kind of starting to get things back again. Life's starting to get calm again, and it always has hit me, was this all there is? Like, this is the point. What's the point? And then I think there's also a part of me that likes the chaos. That was attracted to. I like to. And maybe that's self-destructive tendencies, but in the past I have liked to start to get things back and then almost blow it up and start it all over again.
Yeah, it's interesting because you address the things. I know, having counseled a lot of guys over time, I've noticed some of those things. That one, we tend to like being almost at a deficit. You know, it's like even in relationships. So if my relationship with my wife's going well, I get complacent. But if I do something and I'm kind of off, then all of a sudden I get energized by flowers and a date night and all that kind of stuff to kind of reclaim something. There's something about being behind that motivates me to get ahead, where once I'm ahead, I lose my interest. Maybe it's that competitive instinct. Maybe some of those kind of things kick in.
I think it is. And I think with me, a lot of times in my life, I felt like, especially after I had my drinking and using it got out of control, I think there was a part of me that felt like I didn't deserve this, any success. And I would almost punish myself because I would start to worry about things in the past, failed relationships with family, things that you start those doubts of things that you've done that you can't really ever go back and undo, and they would start to creep in, and I'd think, well, I really don't deserve this. What's the point? And then just blow it up. But that's changed with me now because I am trying to follow Jesus, and I know that I'm forgiven, and I'm trying to forgive myself. It's a daily process. I mean, there's still days that things creep up into my head, but I know that I'm a child of God now, and I have a bigger purpose now for my life.
Well, and I think one of the things we think about a lot of times with transformation, we think that somehow I'm going to kind of just extract everything negative about my personality and reinsert this other thing. Like I'm going to go from being a Marty Feldman to a Tom Selleck out of nowhere. But but the real, I don't know where I came with this, but it really is about learning to manage the things about me, my anxieties, my depressive tendencies, my fears, my doubts, those kind of things, and that my spirituality kind of takes those things and helps me manage them with a new perspective, a new paradigm that God gives me to be able to manage those things and handle those things in better ways.
I really started to embrace this idea that there's certain gifts I have and certain gifts I don't.
Sure.
In the past, I would really obsess over things that I didn't have, or maybe things that I wasn't necessarily good at. And I've really tried to change that perspective. And this has been a somewhat recent thing for me to just realize that there are certain things that I'm going to be good at, and there's certain deficiencies I'm going to have. And it's just managing those. And I've really seen it in Atlanta. Really, with spending a lot of time with Jeremy over there, is that, me and him even talked about it the other day. I'm good at some things, he's good at some things. And together, we're pretty complete, as far as what we're good at. But, I've realized that I'm probably never going to be a biblical scholar. That doesn't mean that I don't read the Bible and I don't try, but I'm probably never going to have the level of knowledge at that Jeremy has. But he's good at that. And then I bring other things to the, in a way, I'm good with numbers. I'm more of an organizational type person, more of a business type person. And maybe Jeremy's not. I think he'd even admit that. And we there's things, it kind of works. So far.
Right, exactly. I mean, Paul talks about that, right, with this picture of the body. The church is like a body, and that we all have different roles. If we're all one thing, where would the other thing be? And so we all complete one another. So I think it's good. We've mentioned Atlanta a couple times, and one of the things I did want to talk about when we had you here today was obviously you have decided to leave Huntsville, to leave kind of the security and the well-established kind of life and fellowship and community you have here to start something completely from scratch, go to somewhere that's completely like a pioneering type of situation. And so I was interested in why you chose to make that move, why you see that, how you see that fitting in your recovery journey.
Well, don't get me wrong. It's been a little bit of a challenge. I don't think that I was really prepared for how much of a shock it was going to be to my system. I knew that it was going to be a challenge somewhat, but I've never been homesick a day in my life for anywhere. And when I got there, I'm not going to lie, the first week I was homesick. And that's unusual for me because I went to college. I've never been homesick, and I was homesick.
Homesick for what?
I think just for here. I missed everybody here. And I know that's probably going to, some people listening, that's going to sound strange that you get homesick for a treatment facility. But it's just, the relationships I've got here and my structure. And you just, one of the main things in recovery is having structure. And I've had to establish a whole new routine and structure there. But the reason I did, first of all, I thought it was a good opportunity. And I really thought it was a chance for me to take my perspective on recovery, because I feel like we all feel like we have a unique perspective. But I feel like I've got a unique perspective kind of on, because I don't necessarily fit what a lot, maybe general society thinks is a normal demographic for an addict. And I thought that it would allow me to take that and apply it over there. And I really thought it was what God was calling me to do. There's a saying in AA that, you only keep what you have by giving it away. And I think that's true even for our faith, right? That we, we're here to kind of spread the message and to, further God's kingdom on earth, and to do things out of love. Or that's, Jim Norval's really pushed this on, this idea, this concept on me. And it's simple, it seems, or sounds simple, but it's harder to put into practice. And I just, I think being comfortable all the time isn't a good thing. And I'm only going to grow by being a little bit uncomfortable. And, it's like having a new car in the garage. What good is it if you're not going to take it out and drive it? So what good is me staying in a controlled environment and being sober if I'm not going to take it out, and even with my faith, and not take it out and spread it and drive it, for lack of a better term?
Absolutely. One of the things that I think about in this transition for you kind of goes back to the homesickness thing and kind of some of the stuff you talked about. I think for a lot of people listening and watching this, you think of a kind of an institutional place. You go to this place, a program, you complete it, you kind of check off your boxes, you leave, and you move on with your life. But you've talked about this community that you go somewhere else and you miss home, you get homesick. And I know a lot of what you were talking about earlier, having gone through your time in which you were dismissed temporarily for a month or so, how you were embraced by the community, how you stayed with our resident director, and how you were, welcomed and loved and cared for. The community, the kingdom community, Christ community is bigger than just an institution. It's a family, and you can miss that, and it can become a part. And part of moving to Atlanta, in my mind, it has to do with recapturing that, recreating that environment in a new place. So as you think about the transition and what you're moving toward, how do you see the His Way Community Huntsville being translated into an Atlanta situation?
Well, I think one of the main aspects is, we have kind of the people starting the program there all came through I guess all of us came through the Huntsville program. And most of us all have been associated with the program for a long time. So we kind of take the spirit, if you will, of Huntsville and apply it to Atlanta. But also I think you have to build that community. You have to find a group of like-minded individuals, right, that all kind of want the same thing. And we've found that over there. The support over there has been overwhelming. Like, it's really shocked me at how much everyone's embraced it, from some of the churches there to just some of the community members. Like, they really see this as a true community effort. And that's amazing to me. I didn't know what that was going to be like, because first of all, I think, Huntsville's a smaller town, really, let's be honest, in the scope of things. So it's hard when you go to a city of a metro area of 5, 6, 7 million, whatever Atlanta is. Are you going to get that same kind of participation? Because there's a million other things pulling people's attention there. And we really have got that participation, like really a level that's just really impressive.
Where does that come from, you think? What's kind of created that?
Well, I think a lot, in this day and age, I think everyone, for the most part, has someone in their family or someone in their life that has been affected by addiction. I really think it's become, sad to say, but it's become commonplace. And I think you've got that. I think you've got a really core group of individuals there that are really trying to further the really following biblical standards and trying to further God's kingdom. And this is how they're acting out of love, is by helping those that are being afflicted with something. And it's, and I know there were some relationships prior, to some of the people here in Huntsville with some of the group in Atlanta that, through family and marriages and things like that. And I think that's one thing. Some of the people in Atlanta, I think, have seen how successful Huntsville's been, and it's really encouraged them. And, I really feel like that there's a group of people over there, a large group, that are just trying to do the right thing. They see a need and they're trying to fill it.
Right. Yeah, I've been really impressed. I've told you and Jeremy, I think at some point you guys have a lot more momentum and support than we ever did, maybe even have in some ways in Huntsville to this day. You guys have a great opportunity, a great wave that you get to ride. Which brings up another point, and you've mentioned it in your own journey, which is when things are going well, it tends to be the time that you blow it up. Here you are moving into this new opportunity. What kind of threats do you see to your sobriety at this point? What kind of challenges do you see? How do you keep yourself from blowing it up again?
Well, this time, I like to say now, and not just this time, my life now has a different focus. Before, I would always just, like I said earlier, I would just get to a point to where I'm like, really, is this it? Like, there's no point. What's the point? To me, anyway. And now, as a Christian, there's a much greater point to things. There's, not just what happens after we, leave here on earth. That's important too, but also what we're doing while we're here to make things better. It's a true ministry, and it's for the first time in my life, I feel like I have a true calling. And I've never had that before. A focus that's greater than me. And before, in my life, I've pretty much always been the focus in my own head. It's been what's best for Chris, to my detriment. And now I'm really trying to do what I think God wants me to do and follow, that kind of true north, like a moral and spiritual true north now. Where before I never had that. And so, but now threat-wise, I mean, sure, the lack of routine, or not lack of, but the new routine is a threat. Just a different environment. There's a lot more fast-paced lifestyle over there. It's just added stress, anxiety, just from the move itself and trying to start something. There's a little bit of pressure. But I think and the biggest thing too is getting out of a routine. I have to be careful not to get out of that routine. Still do my daily devotional, still pray, still read the Bible, still, meditate. But that's the biggest things I have to do for me to stay sober. But like I said, and I've mentioned this a couple of times recently, but, I don't stay sober today out of a desire not to face the negative consequences. I stay sober today because I don't want to sever or negatively impact my relationship with God. And as long as I keep that in mind, I'm better,
I think you've hit on something, I think, that I think is really significant. A lot of times we think that sobriety is about overcoming the negative qualities of our lives and come out getting rid of them, instead of, I think what you're talking about is you develop a greater purpose. You focus your life on a God that's greater than your problems. It's not a matter of getting rid of your problems. It's a matter of you got an answer to your problem that's far greater than the problem. And so the problem is it's like you have the Rocky Mountains now in contrast to the little Appalachians over here that have always been your biggest mountains in the world in the past. And so that is part of what gives you purpose, meaning, and transcends the challenges and struggles that you face. As you look into the future now, as you getting ready to open the doors in Atlanta here soon and start working this ministry, what hopes and dreams do you have for what His Way Atlanta becomes?
Well, I mean, and me and you have talked about this before. I think we need to be 100%. One thing I want to do is be 100% on planting the seed of the Word of God in people. Whether we can't really control, ultimately we can't control whether someone stays sober or doesn't. But we can control whether we introduce everyone to the Word of God. And that's one hope and dream. One goal is just let's be 100% on that. Long term, I would like to be bigger than Huntsville in 5 years. if you do it proportionately by population area, that's kind of a hope and dream of mine.
Right, yeah, that'd be great.
I would like for us to kind of really set the standard for what Christian treatment is, in conjunction with Huntsville. If we can just carry God's word to every resident that comes in, really is my biggest, and just continue to grow, foster community support there, because, there's a million other things. Also, just because someone maybe isn't successful in rehab doesn't mean that they don't build ties in the community that helps them to stay sober long term. We've seen guys leave this program that kind of pull it, they get dismissed and kind of pull it back together and stay sober. And I think the function of that is just a greater community effort at large there. It's the people they met while they were in treatment.
Right.
Maybe sometimes successfully graduating, although it's the ideal situation, but maybe sometimes the larger importance is just the bonds you build also as you go through the process.
Right.
Not to quote Nick Saban, but maybe it's the process. As an Auburn guy, I can't. It's hard for me to do that. But I will say that maybe it's the process.
Okay.
That's just as important sometimes. And I think for Atlanta, I really just want to see us be successful as far as furthering God's kingdom and just continuing to grow and to build community support and just trying to do what we can do to help people stay sober.
Well, I know it's exciting for us because, our vision has been to take what God's done for us and transplant it, both the resources, people, churches, getting other churches involved and other communities involved in this great effort. I mean, I certainly have personally found, I think we have found, those of us who have been at His Way, a great personal calling, a great purpose, a great meaning to what we're doing in this ministry, and to be able to include more people and see it continue and grow and expand. It's exciting. So we're excited for what God has in store for y'all in Atlanta. And of course, we haven't just sent you over there to dangle out on your own. We're going to be 100% behind everything. Our resources are your resources, and we're committed to the success of expanding this, and hope that we'll be able to help other communities do this in the future, and that we'll be able to maybe one day Atlanta will be planting another His Way somewhere else, with the resources that God's blessed y'all to develop. So,
yes, sir.
Anyway, thank you, Chris, for joining us today and for coming. Congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you.
God bless your new endeavor in Atlanta. I'm excited to see what is in store.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for listening and watching to Recovery His Way. If you'd like to learn more about His Way, you can check out our website at hiswayinc.org.